Hi, this is Chico Resch. You are listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast on the Primetime Radio Network.
Happy Devils Thursday. This is Game Day Live, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in beautiful New Jersey, an undisclosed location, and Chicago, Illinois, at Vinnie Parise's Family Estates. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Big game tonight. Devils taking on the Seattle Kraken, hoping to complete the annexation of the entire West Coast. Woo! Vinny, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing very good. It always feels whenever we go 2 games between shows, or 2 days between shows, it feels like it's been forever. It feels longer than 2 days, and that's exactly what we have right here. They should be a little bit extra rested tonight, and then they got another 2 off after this, so it's a nice little opportunity to get your 2 points and get the H out of town, because they are, is it 11-0 against the Pacific Division so far this season? I mean, they have taken care of Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, haven't lost to either of those 3. They've taken care of all 3 California teams at home and on the road. I think they have a couple more at home against those teams, but still, the Seattle Kraken, you have a chance against them tonight. It's a big chance. Obviously, that team is very good. It's not the team the Devils played last time they played the Kraken, but I'm very, very excited about it. It should be a really, really fun time. I can't honestly believe how good they've been, not only on the road, but against the Western Conference in general. Those are things that obviously help take care of making it to the playoffs and whatnot. So far, so good. Hopefully they're able to keep it going.
Yeah, and I'm seeing right now that people are saying that they've got ESPN Plus, but the Devils games are have been blacked out. I don't know what the blackout rule is. I mean, you watch the Devils through ESPN Plus. Am I correct, Vinny?
I do. I watch every Devils game through ESPN Plus. I am not sure why it would be blacked out. I understand it's on, I'm looking right now, it's on Root Northwest, which is the Root Sports Networks for the Pacific Northwest, and then MSGSN. So I don't really, how do people know it's blacked out already? We still got an hour before the game. You can't even click the game yet. It doesn't let you click it until like 10 minutes before. So I don't really know where that's coming from, but let me tell you how annoyed I'm going to be if it's blacked out, because I won't be able to watch it.
I don't know. I don't know, Vinny. You know, one of these days, again, this is me spitballing here, and I'm just talking a bunch of shenanigans, but one of these days, someone's got to, like, illegally stream MSG networks, but in order to, like, cover it up, you must buy the products that they're advertising, like that Mercedes-Benz or BMW that they advertise, and throw a lot of money at it. Then nobody really cares at that point, because it's all about watching the Devils. And yeah, Ted says all the Devils games have been blacked out for me. I always listen to the radio broadcast of Chico and Sam, meaning Sam Kassan, I'm assuming.
I'm curious where they live then. I'm wondering if they're living in like Connecticut or something where the Devils might be not available through MSGSN, but it's too close to New Jersey to use ESPN Plus. I'm honestly not sure how that works. Like I have friends that live in Wisconsin, and you can't in Wisconsin using ESPN Plus watch the Blackhawks, the Wild, or the Detroit Red Wings. And I don't know if you've ever been to Wisconsin. They don't carry NBC Sports Chicago, Bally Sports North, which is what the Wild play on, or Bally Sports Detroit, which is what the Wings play on. And so you really just can't watch those 3 teams.
Yeah, now it all makes sense, because Ted lives in the New York, New Jersey area. Of course it's going to be blacked out. Of course it's going to be blacked out, because you're in the local area. So, you know, how they do these territorial rights and all that, I mean, it's already bad enough that New Jersey is archaic. Like, I can't get Verizon Fios. The only thing I could get really is CenturyLink, which, you know, their DSL speeds are just, like, not even in today's world. You know, it goes back to yesteryear. But I do have access to Comcast, but Comcast still does not have MSG networks. So what do? You stream it. You stream it through the Comcast internet, and get your Devils, who has MSG, like FUBU That's what Shane Van Sickle says. And, and DirecTV streaming is a very popular item with me. But now, but DirecTV, believe it or not, doesn't have some channels where I can't watch my New York Mets because they don't have the WB 11. Somehow it's not on the DirecTV streaming app. So, you have to find creative ways of getting the games, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that applies to a lot of sports. Really, football does it the best because, like, every big market team, you can watch those using Sunday Ticket or if you have Red Zone or whatever. But, like, even baseball. I have a friend who went to Iowa, and they couldn't watch – listen to this list of teams. In Iowa, the White Sox, the Cubs, the Twins, the Royals, and the Cardinals were all blacked out. That's 5 teams that were blacked out in Iowa. And, again, none Marquee Network, NBC Sports Chicago, none of the stations are local through Comcast or whatever provider you have. So you're blacked out on the streaming service. You don't have access to the channels through cable. The whole thing makes no sense to me. I don't really understand the business decision behind it, especially for leagues that claim so hard that they're trying to grow the game all the time.
It's archaic because it's going by old technology. Like growing up, when cable first came into my town, there were 2 channels. There's Sports Channel, where you could get the Devils. You had to pay a huge premium for it back in those days. I mean, $10 back in those days was just for one channel was ridiculous. And I think it was Prism, which was the Flyers, because I used to live like in that borderline of Pennsylvania and New Jersey, the TV market wise, where the over the airwaves would travel, the transmitters. That's what it was all based on, because you could point your TV antenna that was on the roof down to Philadelphia, and I get like Channel 29, Fox, Philadelphia, and then you point it to the old the Empire State Building, or back then the Twin Towers, World Trade, and you could get Fox 5. All the local affiliates. And New Jersey is one of these states that, for longest time, didn't have a local affiliate. It's either New York or Philadelphia. So New Jersey always had that identity crisis on top of it. And that's where the Rangers won, because they owned, they're owned by Cablevision. Cablevision had the distribution of MSG Networks, MSG Plus, whatever they wanted to add on top of it. And they're trying to hold on to their cash cow, but we still have all these archaic rules that are surrounding, because what funds these media companies to buy the rights to televise the Devils games, where the Devils make money. It's called advertising, folks. Because they want more eyeballs on their product, so they can rip off Ray Katina and be like, look, we got all these eyeballs on the Devils games during this time, buy the package, whatever, and pay us, $3 million in marketing advertising for this fiscal year. I'm just making up numbers, Vinny. I don't know if it's $3 million, but it's going to be a boatload of money, so we can pay those fees to televise the rights to televise the Devils for X amount of years. I think that contract is about to end. And the Devils ownership group, again, I'm not going to speak for them. I could just tell you that they're very progressive. Something tells me they may go all digital, and because they are so rich that they can actually have their own regional sports network and then start building a New Jersey community around it, because New Jersey, other than NJ12, which I don't know if that even counts, really doesn't have an affiliate, or at least over the air TV, which is old. Nobody watches it over the air anymore, unless you're cutting the cord and you're like cheap. Where there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. That's a pretty good history lesson there, Sam. You know your stuff.
Well, it's a lot of it's tech.
Yeah,
No,
that's true.
I'm just trying to explain why there's more Ranger fans than Devils fans, in the area. I mean, besides like the Rangers have been around, it's all about controlling the message. So if you're a little kid and you're 6 years old, like I was, I can only get the Rangers on the TV. I couldn't get the Devils. We didn't have cable back then, not because we were poor. Just it simply wasn't available. And but maybe I don't know. I guess we were poor. But anyway, so all I was watching the Rangers. Thankfully, Bob Froese lost every single road game. I've told that story. And I had to go to the Star Ledger to find out that there was a New Jersey Devils team, and that's how I became a Devils fan. A year later, guess what happened? They made on that 1988 miracle run that everybody was talking about. Have another donut, all that. That's how that worked.
Yeah, and that kind of put them on the map too, and it made it where they became like this. They're still the third team in New York, or the area, but hey, some good things came of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's how like media works. That's why this podcast is great. You know why, Vinny? Because we're not blacked out anywhere.
Yeah, you could catch us anywhere.
Yeah, you can catch this Let's Go Devils podcast on ESPN Plus in certain locations, and we're gonna black you out.
Yeah, can you imagine if like we broadcast from Illinois and New Jersey, so those two states, nothing.
The only thing that I would ever think because in digital terms, it's called geofence, geofencing. The only time I would ever think that we would ever have to do that is if like we had some big name gambling sponsor back in the day where it's only in New Jersey. So we would have to like, kill off everybody with IP addresses outside of New Jersey. To facilitate a sponsor of gambling, I have no idea. I'm talking,
that's interesting.
Like what the laws were way back when.
Yeah, well, I know like there are certain streams that like Steve Dangle does with Sportsnet, and you can't watch them if you're in the States. That was always interesting to me too.
I know why.
He's up in Canada.
And do you know why? I know why. Here's the inside tip. Because it cuts costs. They don't make money off of U.S. viewers. And if you stream to U.S. viewers, your costs in the back end of streaming. Trust me, I know a little bit about streaming.
Clearly.
Yeah. So, again, being a bunch of cheap asses, if they were smart, they would get national sponsors between Canada and, like brands that, like, transcend over the border, like Kellogg's or GM or, something like that they can cross-pollinate on North America.
Well, giddy up on that, Canada. I'd like to watch some of these Steve Dangle reaction to watching Leaf games live. I always found that to be so fun, but I go to click it and they're like, yep, you're out of range. Sorry.
Yeah. There are ways around that.
I'm not even that far from Toronto.
There are ways around that. But anyway, let's talk about the Seattle Kraken. I apologize to the viewers. They're watching us live, like Ted and Felix and all that.
The viewers started that conversation.
Yeah, they actually did. And then, of course, like in true fashion, I always get sidetracked. My wife hates that. It's like, one minute I'm cooking dinner, and the next minute I'm doing something else, and then dinner's not like. Actually, that's a bad example because I don't cook dinner. I don't cook. I just eat.
Funny.
Anyway, all right. So Seattle Kraken. We know the history about the Seattle Kraken. They're second year in existence. Their second game ever played, I believe, against the Devils. They hurt Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes was hurt with that freak injury. They try to, beef it up. Nathan Bastian was selected in the expansion draft. They gave him away. We took him back. So Devils really lost nothing out of that, out of that expansion draft. Didn't lose any money, whatnot. So now they're in Seattle. I would really love for the Devils to actually complete the big sweep because they just swept through Western Canada. They swept through Eastern Canada. They swept through California. Why not just finish it up and give out brooms on Sunday?
Yeah, the Devils actually have two players on their team right now that were selected a year ago by the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft. Obviously, Nathan Bastian was selected, and then he played there for a little while. They put him on waivers. The Devils claimed him. They actually selected Vitek Vanacek from the Washington Capitals as well, and then he was on the Kraken's roster for like 7 days, and then they traded him back to Washington so that he could play last season with the Capitals, who then ended up trading him to the Devils. So there are two Devils who know what it's like to be selected in the Seattle Kraken expansion draft that will be playing tonight. But I believe Mackenzie Blackwood is slated to be the starter for the Devils tonight. But meanwhile, on the Kraken, there's still a former somewhat prominent Devil. Adam Larson leads them in ice time, and he's been having a pretty good year for them. But the Devils, or excuse me, the Kraken, they're an interesting squad. They're an extremely interesting squad. They're one of the only playoff teams that don't have a single point per game player, and they're just do it by committee. Everyone chips in and everyone does their job. They get good goaltending from both Martin Jones and Philip Grubauer. Matty Beniers is one of the best rookies in the NHL. He's actually my pick right now to win the Calder Trophy. I think he will end up being the one who does it. Andre Burakovsky is their leading scorer. Jared McCann is their leading goal scorer. It's just an interesting group of people. It kind of reminds me of the Golden Misfits, right? Except this is year 2, so it's a little bit different. They've been able to make trades and have an off season and a second draft and all sorts of things like that. But I'll tell you what, this Kraken team, I'm not sure that they're cup good, but they're right there at the top of the Pacific Division standings with Vegas, obviously enough. And hey, it's a tough test for the Devils. I'm very much looking forward to see how the team game of the Kraken compares with the speed and skill game of the Devils.
You mentioned about Vitek Vanacek, that expansion draft. I'll tell you what, most Rangers fans don't even know this. Mike Richter was a Nashville Predator. Never played for the team. He was actually selected by the Nashville Predators. I don't know if there was a behind-the-scenes deal with the Rangers where it's like, okay, can you just take our guy? So when we re-sign him back, you get some compensation, I guess, for us signing him back or something like that. I don't know if there was a arranged deal, but probably 99% of the Rangers fans don't even know that Mike Richter was not a New York Ranger for like 20 days or something like that. It's kind of weird, right?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't even know that. So that's an interesting little tidbit. I'm sure there are more players who can say the same. Like, I know Vegas selected Trevor Van Riemsdyk from the Hawks, and then before he even, got to Vegas to say hello to anyone, he was traded off to Carolina. Like, obviously he wasn't traded back to Chicago, but there are lots of moments where guys are on an expansion team for like a week or less, and that happened to Vitek.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad Vitek's on the team, on the Devils. Is he starting tonight, or is it Mac Black tonight? Do you know?
I believe it is Mac Black. He was the first goalie off the ice in warm-ups. So obviously warm-ups or morning skate. I mean, obviously warm-ups haven't started yet, but I'm fairly certain it's Mackenzie Blackwood tonight.
And I think the goalie tandem is working really well right now. As long as Mac Black and Vanacek remain healthy, I think it's working very, very well right now. I know some fans want Vitek in. Some people have already written off Mac Black. But I'll tell you what, right now, just having that tandem, it saves the wear and tear during this regular season. It really does. And Vanacek is at his best when he has rest. He's kind of like it's kind of like pitchers in baseball. Like, some pitchers pitch really well on 6 days rest versus 5 days rest, for whatever reason. Probably because, or it's the opposite. Some pitchers need work and do better on the 4 and 5 day rest than the 6 day rest because they get too amped up, and then they're not pitching. They're throwing hard. Kind of like, I'm just using a baseball analogy. But yeah, I like Mac Black for tonight. You're
talking to the right guy on that, and I actually think Max Scherzer had a stretch where he was better on 4 days rest in the playoffs than 5 days rest in the play. I mean, Scherzer's an absolute weirdo. We all know that. I know we got plenty of Mets fans watching. Obviously, he was with Detroit for a long time, so I saw him play against my favorite team a lot. And so guys like that, that's so interesting to me sometimes how that works. So It'll be wild to see how this tandem goes the rest of the season. I do believe, as of right now, the game one starter for the postseason is Vitek Vanacek, but Mackenzie Blackwood, he's been playing good lately. He got the harder of the two assignments in California, in Southern California. Vitek played against the Ducks, and Blackwood played against the Kings. I think the Ducks have a couple players that can make any goalie look dumb, like Zegras and Troy Terry and guys like that. But the Kings play a much harder game, a much more difficult to play against game, and Mackenzie Blackwood was up to the task. And so here we go against the Kraken.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what, Vinny and Ted is saying Schmid. It's okay. You know what? It's a happy problem. I never thought we would have this. I really never thought we would have this beginning of the season. Like, are we going to have a happy problem with the goaltending? A lot has to happen, and it has. I mean, you know, and don't forget there's Dawes and Brennan in the system as well. You know, who is really the number one goaltender? You know what? Let them fight. Let them fight it out. But Dave Singer's looking for Bastian in front of the net.
Yeah, I think Bastian's going to have a huge game here tonight, going back to Seattle and what happened with Hughes last year and getting claimed off waivers and stuff. I actually do expect Bastian to have a really – and I know he's coming back from injury, but, you know, sometimes weird things like that happen when there's these storylines. Like you hear it's a guy's birthday, you bet 50 on them to score a goal. It's just something – like tonight it just seems like Bastian, a good game for him. To go back to the goalies, I agree. Sam, I'm 28, and – most of my life until 2018, other than a couple backup starts here and there, one of Corey Schneider or Martin Brodeur started for the Devils. So this little bit of an influx that we've had for the last 2 or 3 years is something strange, but I think we might finally be getting a little bit of continuity with it as we head down the stretch run of this season.
Yeah, and, you know, tonight, Seattle, like, why is Seattle, like, second year of existence, what makes them so good? They're very high in the standings. They've won some big games. They beat the big bad Boston Bruins in Boston. What makes Seattle good?
It's kind of one of the more unexplainable things, in my opinion, when I look across the league. Like, I got the standings up right now. The Pacific Division is the worst division in the NHL, in my opinion. There are 3 teams with over 600 points percentage, and then they have the 2 wildcard teams, which the Central, actually, looking at the Central, because Colorado, Nashville, and St. Louis have been so disappointing, they might actually be lower than the Pacific Division at this point. I honestly, I don't explain it well, just because it's just such a team effort. There's no one person on that team. They don't have a Jack Hughes. They don't have a Nico Hischier or a Jesper Bratt, but I'll tell you what, Matty Beniers might be that one day, and I still have very high hopes for Shane Wright, and Seattle didn't do anything wrong taking Shane Wright. If you wanted Cooley, if you wanted Nemec, Slavkovsky, whatever, Wright fell to 4. Seattle did the right thing, no pun intended. And so if they can develop him into, you know, a top 2 centerman, there's no doubt that the future is bright for this club. I like what they do on defense. And, you know, the number one thing, if I had to nail it down to one thing, one reason that the Kraken are 26, 14, and 4, Martin Jones, right? Like, Martin Jones was really good with the Sharks when the team in front of him was really good. Once the team started to fall off a little bit, he started to fall off a little bit. It's almost like most goalies rely on their team in front of them to at least get rid of rebounds and clear out second chances. Very few Andrei Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, guys like that are difference makers, unlike anybody else. But Martin Jones is a pretty solid goaltender, and it's going to be the Devils are going to have to get him moving if they want to beat him tonight.
And I think their secret weapon behind the scenes, Ron Francis, you know, Hall of Fame player.
Great player.
Did, you know, executive as well at the Carolina Hurricanes, bolting for Seattle, the Seattle Kraken, and hiring Dave Hackstall as our coach. Dave Hackstall got a lot of crap with the Philadelphia Flyers. And, you know, there was one time I got to meet him and his family. He is a very, very well-prepared coach. And I don't know what happened in Philadelphia because they had that run with Shane Gosper and all those
10
guys.
straight wins.
Yeah, and just something didn't click with Philadelphia and Hackstall, and I think he got a bad rap there. But with Seattle, being an expansion franchise and the young players, being from the college ranks and being one of those innovative coaches, I think he's probably one of the biggest reasons why this team is outperforming expectations.
Yeah, that Flyers team stunk. They're the only team in NHL history to win 10 in a row and lose 10 in a row in the same season. Oddly enough, the Devils were 4 losses away from joining them on that list. But that's a lie. I'm not sitting here. They weren't close to it. But obviously things are different with this team. But that Flyers team was a mess in their own end, and they got no goaltending. Their defense was terrible. There's a reason a 20-year-old like Shane Gostisbehere was able to play 1,000 minutes a game. It's just that team was a disgrace. And
well, look at the
Hackstall
Flyers
took
now.
the brunt of it.
I mean, look at the Flyers now. Like, where are they going? Because Ron Hextall bolted. I think he's with the Pittsburgh Penguins now. Why? They were going on this, like, it's kind of like the Rangers. They were like going on this like young player trend with a college coach. The Rangers, was it Dave Quinn that was the coach? And then they fired,
Yep.
and then just overhaul. And, but you know what? And this is where you kind of appreciate what the Devils have done. As critical as I've been, they did it the right way once Fitzgerald was in command. So far, every move he's made has turned into gold. He's not perfect by any means. And some of it he got lucky. The Gaudreau thing could have really burnt the Devils, but you know what? Things happen for a reason. His plan B was better than his plan A.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And the Rangers, the Flyers, they hired Torts. Like, I would understand hiring Torts if you thought you were like a hard coach away from winning the cup, but when you're trying to do what they're trying to do, it just wasn't a hire that made a whole lot of sense to me. So
I think
don't
that's
know.
just desperation for mediocrity instead of getting blown out every night, where it's almost like you're tanking, and then for the GM to get wiped out for a new regime, clean slate with the first overall pick. I think it was just one of these things. I think that was the reason why. And that doesn't bode well short-term or long-term for the Flyers organization, which I don't care about. I mean, I want them to fail. But,
Yeah. I would hate to see Connor Bedard come to the Metropolitan Division unless he was wearing red and black.
And that's a scary thought if that even happened. And it could happen. It could. Very well could happen.
Columbus is looking like they might finish last, so
yeah. Exactly.
That would be tough.
So let's get to predictions, Vinny. What are you predicting?
Predictions. The Devils are going to beat the Kraken 3-1.
Okay. All right. I'm thinking 5-3 Devils. I'm thinking 5-3. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game. I think Nathan Bastian's going to get one in. I think he's just, like, ready to go. It's unfortunate how Bastian got hurt. And, and the Devils kind of suffered a little bit because of it. But they kind of grew up. You just can't rely on one player to do all the dirty work. And I think it actually made the Devils stronger. It was almost a blessing in disguise in that regards. Let's see some of these. 5-3, Steve Engel, he's with me. Ted says 5-2 Devils. Max says 4-3 Devils. Ramona Rice says 4-2 Devils. Shane Van Sickle says 3-1 Devils. Felix says 6-3 Devils. Just everybody wants to comment.
I love it. And everyone's picking the Devils, which means they're good.
Yeah. And let's see here. Steve Tardis says 3-2 Devils on the Facebook Live. Andre from Norway says 5-1 Devils. So Nate Milbank. I don't know. He's watching BattleBots. I don't know what that's all about. But anyway. All right. So, well, I guess that's it. Any last plugs?
Good.
Any last plugs?
Yeah, I mean, I hope everybody enjoys the game. It's going to be a good one. I think this is two pretty good teams that not too many people expect it to be this good playing against each other up in the Pacific Northwest. So I hope everybody enjoys the game.
And a lot of Devils fans are making the trip. I'm seeing the pictures on social media. I see Catherine Bogart everywhere in Seattle. So that's good. So a lot of representation in Seattle. One of these days I got to get there. I have family out there. Bachakalu says 6-2 Devils. And Ted is getting carried away saying that Eric Holla with the hat trick. No, that's going to be towards later in the season, as I'm predicting. So also just remember, February 25th, American Whiskey, our 500,000 party. Yes, 500,000 party. We got to keep on plugging away. Sangria, unlimited amount of sangria will be imported into American Whiskey. And Ryan Hunter says 5-2 Devils. Great. Yeah, and those travel, I'd suggest you get a hotel room. Because it's going to be a wonderful night, Vinny. It's going to be a crazy night, February 25th. I know we're like over a month out, but we got to start promoting it. Because it will be Devil Flyers that night. Yeah. All right, I want to thank all those listening in. Drop in the podcast in about 20 minutes for our truckers. Till next time, let's go Devils.